Okay, now we're going to go ahead and merge fiscal policy with the aggregate demand, aggregate supply model. So first off, go ahead and get out the fiscal policy and aggregate demand, aggregate supply note sheet. Again, you'll find that in the FP module. Because what we're going to do is we're going to show how the two policies, expansionary and contractionary, work inside the aggregate demand, aggregate supply model. Alright, so first off, we've got inflation, we've got recession. These are the two areas that the government needs to nudge us. Right here, the market area, we don't have to worry about government. We're good. So government stays out of this part as much as possible, or at least we'd like them to. So if we're looking at spending too much money, in other words, the economy wants to do this, but we can't because of the way, and we talked about this, we physically have no more resources to produce, right? Here's our output, here's our GDP. Whoops. We're kind of stuck right here. So we're spending and we're just driving the price of things up. And the standard of living goes down when this happens. So what we want the government to do is to nudge us to spend more, or we want to contract our spending. So it's not necessarily contracting our circular flow economy, but it's definitely contracting the spending, which theoretically is going to reduce that. But remember, right here, our circular flow economy isn't going anyway because we can't produce anymore. We're stuck right there. On the other side, if we're in a recession, we were here, now we're like this. What we want to do is we want to go ahead and try to expand and grow that economy again. That's why they call it expansionist fiscal policy. So, those are the two policies in this area and this area that we do to go ahead and get us back here. Now the tools we use, remember the tools were taxes and spending. So, whoops, see. The thing about it is though, is these two policies can have some very bad effects on politicians. Because remember, the politicians are passing these policies and then they're going out to us voters and saying, hey, vote for me. I put this together when it was Halloween many years ago, so that's why we got the pumpkin and the skull and crossbones. And expansionary fiscal policy works very well. I mean, let's face it, if I was a senator coming up for re-election and I came to you and I said, look, I know you guys are having a hard time. I'm going to give you free education. You're not going to pay tuition, you're not going to pay textbooks, you're not going to pay any of that stuff. Vote for me. Chances are, some of you may actually do that based just on that. On the other side, if I was the other senator and I came up and said, we have a $22 trillion debt. We have to start paying it down. We can't spend so much money all the time. So what I would like you to do is pay all of your tuition. Now remember, most folks going to, especially public colleges, don't pay 100% of tuition. In Florida, you pay about 25%. So think about having to go to class, yet paying 4 times the amount in tuition. Okay? Vote for me. Chances are I'm not getting too many votes from you guys. So when we're looking at fiscal policy, politicians don't really like to do this because it could lead to them being unelected, right? Kicked out of office. On the other side, politicians love doing this because, hey, we love free stuff and we'll get reelected. So think about what the politicians are telling you right now out there on the campaign trail. Remember at the beginning I said this course used to be called political economics. Why? Because we're talking about it right here. Contractionary fiscal policy, expansionary fiscal policy, and what it does to help our economy. But remember, it also affects people. Now, the tools itself, taxes and spending, taxes and spending. We use the same tools in the same areas, but we use them differently. In a recession, we're going to raise taxes. Now, raise taxes means I'm taking money out of your paycheck. So if I take money out of your paycheck, you don't have it to spend. So that's the government nudging you not to spend that money. I can also lower government spending. I cannot pay 75% of your tuition and make you pay all of your tuition. So by lowering spending, I go ahead and do the same thing. I'm going to nudge our aggregate demand curve back down in this area. Also, down in the recession area, I can lower taxes, meaning I'm putting more money back in your paycheck. So if I put more money back in your paycheck, you now have more to spend. Or I could raise government spending. I could say, hey, I'm going to pay for all of your college. In either case, you now have the money you were going to spend, like the $300 for this month's class, or this semester's class, you can now spend it on something else. So we now start heading this direction. Both of them work. And seeing as how you're a conservative or a liberal here, it doesn't make any difference who's in office. It works. Conservative or liberal here, doesn't make any difference who's in office. It works. The question is, are we going to do it, or are we going to do it? Households. Remember, this is it. We are our own worst enemy when we're in a recession or when we're in inflation. And we're not going to go ahead and bail ourselves out. That's why government nudges us to do this. And as a matter of fact, if they don't nudge us, we'll get so upset with the ones that are in power that we're going to vote them out anyway. Because if we have a bad economy, we're going to try the other group to see if they can make it better for us. So that's what we're looking at. Now, this is what this sheet should look like. Okay? Doesn't look, it's not all that hard. It just takes the tools that we talked about, the two fiscal policies that we talked about, and shows how we use it and who uses it to nudge from here to here. That's all we're looking at. Now remember this one. This was last week. Here's our aggregate demand, aggregate supply curve. This is what makes us go ahead and spend. Remember, there's taxes. Increase taxes, I'm taking money away from your paycheck. You're not going to be spending as much. Reduce taxes, I'm giving you more money. We're going to go ahead and spend more. Okay? Then, of course, we've got government spending down here. If the government's spending less, consumers are going to have to spend more, which means we're going to drop spending. Government spends more, consumers don't have to spend as much. Now we can spend much more stuff on other things. Again, right in here. Government, institution, environment. There's the taxes. Okay, so with this, what I want you to do is I want you to get out that fiscal policy with the aggregate demand, aggregate supply worksheet. Because what I'm giving you is I'm giving you a situation here. The demand in our economy is inching along, prices are not changing, we have high unemployment. What you do is you take a look at this to decide, are we here, here, or here? And then, once you decide where we are, then you figure out which policy and what you're going to do, the tools in it, to get to here. That's what I'm asking you to do. So what I want you to do at this point is go ahead and shut off the video, take this worksheet, and work through it. You have 6 questions. Where would you put the curve? Literally, draw the curve where you think it is. Then once you've drawn it there, then what policy? We have a policy for here, a policy for here. So fill in which one we're going to use. What tools? Here and here. How would you use the tools? What side uses the tools? In other words, conservative or progressive. And what might happen to the politician? So go ahead and with that, pause the video, go through this, and then come back. Alright, now that you're back, what you should see is demand in the economy economy is increasing. We want stuff, but prices are not changing. We have high unemployment. High unemployment and not changing, we're right down here. Take a look at that aggregate demand model, and that's high unemployment and prices not changing are key indicators that we're here. So that's the first one. That's where you draw the line. Because we're here, we want to go expansionary fiscal policy to nudge us this way. We're going to use taxes and spending. We're going to lower taxes and or raise spending. Conservatives are going to do this and liberals are going to do that. And we love our politician. Okay? So that's how fiscal policy and the aggregate demand, aggregate supply curve meet up together. Alright, so that's the end of this section, and we'll get into the next one in a second.